Hey, this is Ryan from Rocket SaaS, and you're listening to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast, the show that gives you actionable marketing strategies and campaign ideas to rocket your SaaS business. And if you want even more SaaS marketing ideas, go to saasmarketingweekly.com to join my free newsletter. Hello and welcome back to another episode of SaaS Marketing Weekly with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. And today we're going to be talking again about demand generation. Me and my colleague Jamie did a webinar on demand generation. You may have heard it on the previous episode of SaaS Marketing Weekly, and it's got a lot of feedback, a lot of traction. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into demand gen. And I particularly want to focus on why I think a lot of companies or a lot of marketers are getting demand gen wrong. Because I do believe that demand generation can transform your business in terms of lead gen, growth, and becoming a leader in your space. It's just a lot of people are not quite getting it or not quite doing it right. And the main problem that I see is that people treat it as a marketing only function. So for example, I see companies hiring a head of demand gen and they expect that person to deliver the whole demand gen piece. And that is always just destined to fail because it's never going to be the role of one person or just one department. So if demand generation is not just a marketing only function, what is it? My philosophy is that it's sales, marketing, and leadership all coming together. And when they come together and they use data to fuel the demand generation strategy, it then becomes a flywheel. So I'm coining it the demand generation flywheel. So you know a flywheel? It's like a circle that just keeps on spinning and spinning and spinning. So the idea is sales, marketing, and leadership, and the data and the insights that you get keep feeding each other, and the whole thing keeps spinning faster and faster and getting better and getting more momentum. So in this podcast, I'm going to break into each of those sections and how you can create that flywheel and get that demand generation thing spinning. So let's break down the 4 different elements and why each one of them has got a specific problem within demand gen if it's all siloed. So leadership, the leaders in the company, typically going to be the founders or the execs in the business. They are often invisible when it comes to marketing content, thought leadership content, or creating content in general. A lot of the leaders in the company think that they're too busy to be creating content, getting involved in content, getting involved too heavily in marketing. Therefore, leadership just remains invisible. And then that results in marketing having to create all of the content for the business from scratch. And when that happens and they haven't got leadership to fuel the thought leadership, then what are you going to get? You're going to get generic content. These marketing people that you've hired don't have the passion, the years of experience in the industry that you may have as a founder. So their content is not going to be as good if they're not getting leadership to fuel those content ideas. You've then got sales. If the sales team aren't connected with the marketing team, then the sales team are just going to be using those same old cold calling, cold outbounding sequences, targeting an audience that hasn't consumed any of the marketing content before, so they are completely cold. And it's so hard to get a cold audience straight from a sales call. So you've got issues there as well. And then finally, it's content strategy. When the leadership or the marketing team are sitting down thinking about what content to create, if they don't have any data, any lessons from the previous content that's been created, then the content strategy just becomes a guessing game. So you can see those 4 different areas: leadership, marketing, sales, content strategy. With most businesses, all 4 of those departments are siloed, and demand gen is never going to work. It's never going to even get off the ground if you've got all those 4 departments siloed. So you need all 4 departments to come together and to create a demand generation flywheel. So let's go through each of those 4 again and talk about how they can fuel the next step in the flywheel. So let's start with leadership. The marketers need to extract the thought leadership from their brains or their mouths. Now, in an ideal world, you will have some of the leaders in the business or one of the leaders in the business that is willing to get involved and create content. So like me, I'm the founder of the company. I host webinars. I host this podcast. I do videos. I create blogs. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's a real superpower for any brand. So that's the ideal scenario, is you convince one of the leaders to start really creating their own content. However, I know that that is not always the case. You've either got the totally understandable reason that the leadership are just too busy to be creating a ton of content. It's not going to happen. Or on the other hand, if you've got a leader that's up for doing it, but sometimes they're just not very good. They got no charisma. They're terrible on video. So the content you create just ends up doing more harm than good. And I get that as well. But that's okay. it's not critical for demand generation to have one of the leaders that's willing to do all that stuff. And if that's the case, then the marketer just needs to extract the insights from the leader, and then they turn it into the content. So what you want to do as a marketer is create a content calendar. So let's say in the upcoming month, we want to talk about this particular topic. We want to create a bunch of content. Let's say if you're in the HR SaaS world, let's say you want to create a bunch of content that's about how to reduce employee churn. And then you come up with some subheaders because those are the blogs that you want to be creating and the LinkedIn posts and the videos that you want to be spinning out. But before the marketer creates that content, you need thought leadership insights from the leadership team. And you extract that by interviewing them. So my advice, so that you don't kind of end up dropping the ball on this as time progresses, is you set up a recurring monthly interview with one of the leadership team. And it's great if you've got multiple leaders, because it means it isn't the same person being interviewed every single month. You can split it between them. But you create the content calendar, you write the interview questions, you jump on a Zoom call, and then you interview them. Make sure you have a note taker, like Fathom or Otter or something like that. And if you get your thought leader talking for 30 minutes on a call, you're going to get about 4,000 words in the transcript. And that is absolute gold, particularly when you're going to be using AI, ChatGPT, etc., to start repurposing that transcript into the content that you want. Oh, and by the way, you can also record that interview and turn it into LinkedIn video snippets. So from that interview, you've potentially got video snippets, maybe even a long form video as well. You can spin out LinkedIn posts, blog articles. You could easily spin out a script for a podcast. You've even got the structure of a webinar, and ChatGPT could do that piece of cake. Just give it the transcript and say, hey, can you turn this into a blog article? And then give it a few more prompts so you've got it right. And then boom, you've got fantastic thought leadership content created by the marketing team, but it's not generic because they've come up with the ideas. It's thought leadership content because it's come from leadership. So if you imagine this flywheel with the 4 sections, you can now see how leadership is fueling marketing with great content. So that's like the first 2 steps of this flywheel that I'm creating. So in step 2 of this flywheel, which is marketing, taking that thought leadership content, turning it into blogs, email sequences, social posts, etc., boosting it all with ads as well, just getting that content out there as far and as wide as possible. You then move into the 3rd segment of the flywheel, which is sales. So you need the sales team to monitor who's engaging with the marketing content. So instead of sales doing cold outreach, they can start connecting with the people that are engaging with the marketing content. Now, demand generation is not about pushy sales and like annoying phone calls, cold emails when you didn't ask for it. But there's nothing wrong with sales in a demand generation function, striking up genuine conversations with people that are engaging with marketing content. So, for example, if a LinkedIn post gets an insightful comment from a prospect, a salesperson could come in, give additional insight, get a conversation happening, and without being too pushy, just ask if they need support in that particular area. If they say yes, introduce the product, jump on a call, make the sale happen. And also, sales, if it's connected with marketing, they'll start to learn about what's resonating with the audience. So if marketing is trying different types of content, running different ads, using different headlines, using different email subject lines, marketing should be informing sales of what's resonating well. Like this particular topic is getting far more engagement than any of our other topics. Or this particular headline is getting a really strong click-through rate. So then sales will start to implement that content into their sales content, meaning they're going to get a better result, as opposed to them just being totally siloed and coming up with their own ideas. And then the 4th and final piece of the flywheel is taking the data and the insights from both the marketing and the sales team and feeding it back into leadership to say this content, this messaging, these topics are resonating the most with our audience. I think we need to create more content on these areas. And then leadership say, okay, well, that's interesting. Great. I've got some really good ideas about how we can dive deeper into that particular topic. I look forward to the interview next week. And then boom, the flywheel starts again. So that is how the demand generation flywheel works. Because marketing alone cannot create demand. Sales alone cannot generate enough leads. And leadership alone cannot scale influence. But when you've got all 3 functions working together, your content just gets better and better. You start to get more engagement. Sales learn faster and make more sales. Leadership start to get more and more involved in content, which is a good thing for the marketing team. And this whole thing just starts spinning faster and faster. And that is how you create really effective demand generation. So look at all 4 functions: leadership, marketing, sales, and the data insights. Are any of them siloed? Are they not feeding into one another like I've explained? If so, have a chat with the leaders of each department or have a chat with leadership and say, this is what you want to happen. Get all of those people in a room that own those functions and then put the steps in place so that you're all communicating and working together. And that's how you generate demand. So I hope you enjoyed that pod. There will be more pods undoubtedly about demand generation. This is a perfect example of us understanding our data and our insights, learning what our audience care about. So we then create more content on that topic. We dive deeper. And demand generation is definitely one of those. And it's been amazing for my business. It's absolutely transformed it in terms of lead gen. So I love creating content about demand gen. But yeah, thank you for listening. And I'll see you next week on SaaS Marketing Weekly.